We're taking a look today at Final Fantasy II from Squaresoft, whose original NES release was cancelled, but was developed and published in 1988. Information on this version is fairly sparse. Most of it tends to be for the Nintendo DS version, which is not the one I'm interested in or care about. There's also a lot of information for the PlayStation version, which came out in the Origins disc in 2002, I believe. But we're not going to talk about that. We're going to talk about this one, published by Square, and is the second installment of the Final Fantasy series. The game has received numerous enhanced remakes for the WonderSwan Color, the PlayStation, the Game Boy Advance, and the PSP, and multiple mobile and smartphone types. As neither this game nor Final Fantasy III were initially released outside of Japan, Final Fantasy IV was originally released in North America as Final Fantasy II, so as not to confuse players. The most recent games are enhanced versions for the iOS and Android, which was released worldwide in 2010 and 12 respectively. The game's story centers on 4 youths whose parents were killed during an army invasion by the Empire of Paramecia. 3 of the 4 main characters join a rebellion against the Empire, embarking on missions to gain new magic and weapons, destroy the enemy superweapons, and rescue leading members of the Resistance. After defeating the Empire and the Emperor, the trio discovers that the 4th youth, now a Dark Knight, has taken the place of the previous Empire and is preparing to attack the rebellion. Upon confronting him, the Emperor reappears as a demon and prepares to destroy the world. However, the 4 characters agree to join forces to defeat him, and ultimately they destroy him in his demonic castle. The Game Boy Advance remake adds a bonus story after the game is completed, following several side characters who died during the game as they attempt to defeat an alternate version of the Emperor. Final Fantasy II introduced many elements that would later become staples of the Final Fantasy franchise, including chocobos and recurring character Cid. It also eliminated the traditional experience point leveling system of the previous and later games in the series, instead introducing an activity-based progression system, where character stats increase according to how they are used or acquired. Despite being a sequel to Final Fantasy, the game includes no characters or locations from the first game, and it received little attention at the time from non-Japanese reviewers, probably because it wasn't available to non-Japanese reviewers, though its remakes have garnered favorable reviews. Gameplay is similar to that of Final Fantasy. We freely roam an overworld containing several towns and dungeons. A menu-based system allows us to outfit each character with equipment and up to 2, often disposable items for battles. Magic spells are assigned from the main menu, and certain spells, such as Cure, can be used outside of battle. The player can also save their progress on the overworld. Weapons, armors, items, and magic spells must be purchased at shops, and townspeople provide useful information for the player's progression through the game. One new feature is the word memory system, which when in conversation with NPCs, you can ask and memorize special keywords or phrases, which can be later repeated to other NPCs to gain more information or unlock new actions. Similarly, there exists a handful of special items that can be shown to NPCs during conversation or used on certain objects, which will have the same effect. Characters and monsters are no longer separated into separate windows in the battle screen as they were in the first game, and players can see their current and total hit points below the battle. Players can also fight with less than 4 characters in their party, which was not possible in the first game unless someone died. Final Fantasy II introduced the Chocobo, a signature Final Fantasy mascot, which lets characters ride to a location at great speed without being attacked by enemies. The recurring character of Cid was also introduced in II, and a character of the same name has appeared in every main series game since. We still have random battles and all that, which, not too different from the first game there. However, getting rid of the experience-based level system did kind of confuse the heck out of some players, and took a little while to get used to when you first play it. But once you understand it, it goes really, really easy. The way it works is your mage is not going to gain a level if your fighter is hacking someone to pieces with an axe. Your mage actually has to do something. Your mage is not going to get more powerful magic by hitting things with a stick. Your mage has to actually cast spells for it to work. Makes sense? Makes sense. During the development of the first installment of the series, Square's management decided to manufacture 400,000 copies of the game to make a sequel possible. As there were no concrete ideas for Final Fantasy II from the start, it was eventually taken in a new direction, included none of the previous game's characters or locations. Hironobu Sakaguchi had previously served as the main planner for Final Fantasy, assumed the role of director to accommodate for the larger development team. Using the experience gained from the first installment, which focused more on fitting story ideas into the new gameplay system and game world, the developers fully crafted the story of Final Fantasy II first. The gameplay was then built around the narrative. The experience system was designed to be more realistic than that of the first game, and several members of the original staff reprised their jobs for Final Fantasy II. Sakaguchi again created the plot for the title, with the actual scenario written by Kenji Tarada. Nobuo Uematsu composed the music, as he had for the first game, while Yoshitaka Amano was again the concept artist. As with the original Final Fantasy, II was programmed by Nasser Gabelli. Midway through the development of the game, Gabelli was forced to return to Sacramento, California from Japan due to an expired work visa. The rest of the development staff followed him to Sacramento with necessary materials and equipment and finished production of the game there. The game was released one day less than a year after the first game came out. How about that? It's been re-released a bunch of times. I'm not a big fan of the re-releases, as most of you who have listened to me talk about this know. Mostly not because the re-releases are re-releases. I mean, there's a game we never got in America, but my problem with re-releasing games like this is let's add a bunch of extra stuff that wasn't there to begin with, because the people who bought it the first time, which was 8 people in North America, won't want to buy our remake unless it's got a bonus dungeon in it. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. This, however, is a pretty damn good game.